Unless you've been living under a rock away from the anime community for the past couple of months, you probably heard someone praising to high heavens the new Netflix anime, Aggretsuko, a show marketed as being about a cute little animal who lets out her frustration by leading the secret life of a death metal vocalist. To some of you, that premise may sound familiar, and it's because another anime by the name Detroit Metal City had a similar premise. Detroit Metal City is about a boy who wants to make pop music, and has tricked everyone into thinking he does so, but he's actually the frontman of a death metal band. He hates his own band and not only tries to hide the fact that he's in it from his friends and family, but denies the very part of himself that enjoys death metal, leading to hilarious situations. I really enjoyed Detroit Metal City and how it handled its premise, so I was excited to see another anime similar to that. I thought Aggretsuko would be even funnier given the juxtaposition between cute little animals and the horrifying nature of death metal. I thought it would also give some hilarious situations showing the ridiculousness of the genre or the situations where the character had to hide her obsession with it. Boy, was I wrong. Not only was the show totally not what it was marketed as, it's a pile of trash. I know I'm going to get backlash for saying this because it has an army of fans that think the writing of this show is brilliant. But if you seriously think the writing in this show is brilliant, your standards are probably pretty low. I watched the first episode, which is only about 15 minutes long, but before it was over, I was squirming just to stop it altogether. Needless to say, I don't plan on watching another episode. So what's this show about really? Well, it's about this cute little animal, Aggretsuko, going to work and dealing with her boss, who is literally a pig, which is so on the nose that it's worthy of an eye roll, and dealing with her annoying co-workers while getting into awkward situations. The death metal aspect of the show isn't even important. It's just a marketing gimmick. And from the first episode, it appears to have no weight on the actual plot. So, what's the appeal of the show exactly? Well, I'll let the fans of the show explain that one for you.
But Aggretsuko speaks to us on a deeper level than most, and it's a level that so many of us can relate to.
Yazzie was shouting at the screen, she's literally me every single episode.
Though Aggretsuko seems to be a bit more relatable,
I found this anime extremely relatable.
The relatability of the show is almost so accurate that I am both crying and laughing on the inside.
Yep, that's right. It's relatable. Like a terrible meme made on Facebook, your enjoyment of the show relies on how well you can relate to the situations the characters find themselves in. Now, relying on relatability isn't a bad thing in and of itself. It's good to have relatable characters. However, Aggretsuko should be exhibit number 1 on how not to do it. I'm going to compare Aggretsuko Episode 1 to Detroit Metal City Episode 1, because I think Detroit Metal City is a far better show, and because Detroit Metal City does all of these elements better. I know they are two very different shows, but my comparisons will be general, so bear with me here and wait to pull out your pitchforks and torches until the end of the video. A good example of relatability comes in the form of Detroit Metal City's main character. He's frustrated with his current situation in life, he hates his job, he feels awkward around people, and he has a dark side to him that he represses. Now, the main character of Aggretsuko has all of these traits as well, but the execution is what makes the difference here. In Detroit Metal City, what you relate to is the ideas conveyed within the scenes. Most of you probably haven't been in a death metal band, so you can't relate to the very specific situation of hiding your band from people you know for fear of being ostracized. But you can relate to keeping a huge secret that would ruin your reputation. For weeaboos watching Detroit Metal City, it's the Dakimakura and Fleshlight hidden in their closet. And for other people, it's other things. But you get the point. In the same way, you don't have to find catharsis in death metal to understand why the main character loses himself in that kind of music. The idea is that the main character has a frustrated, violent part of himself that can only be remedied by performing a specific action. This is an idea someone can understand and relate to, whether they also enjoy death metal or not. The key here is understanding that ideas conveyed within these scenes are general. Even though the audience won't be able to relate to specifics, it doesn't matter because the general theme is what keeps them relating to the character. In order for a scene or character to be relatable, it doesn't have to explicitly tell you that it is, or have writing that's so obvious and on the nose that it's basically pandering to the lowest common denominator, which is basically Aggretsuko's problem, because the concept of subtlety and general themes is totally lost in Aggretsuko. All of its relatability comes in the form of specificity instead of general ideas. In the beginning of the episode, it shows Aggretsuko checking to make sure she has everything, walking out the door, and then oh no, she has to come back in because she forgot something. Haha. That's so relatable. Then she gets to work and realizes she put on her Crocs instead of her work shoes and does an awkward dance to keep people from staring at her feet. Haha. That's so relatable. I'm sure you see the problem at this point. There's no general theme or idea behind this. You've either been in this kind of situation before and can relate, or you haven't, in which case, fuck you. Sure, you may be able to relate to being awkward or forgetful, but the show places so much emphasis on the external specificity of the situation that any larger idea for the audience to relate to is lost. The characters and situations in this show are relatable on a shallow level, and that's a good word to describe really the rest of the series as well. Shallow. It's definitely a perfect description of the death metal gimmick this show has. When Aggretsuko gets off from work, she goes to a karaoke bar and sings death metal. It's once again supposed to be a haha relate hardcore situation, making you think, yeah, I wish I could scream into a microphone when I get home from work. Instead of focusing on the general idea of catharsis, the show focuses on the very specific feeling of being frustrated to the point of screaming. This is different from the writing in Detroit Metal City, which is a lot more subtle. The scenes where the main character performs death metal aren't explicitly written to be cathartic at first glance, but it is something that you pick up on as the episode continues and you realize that death metal is really his catharsis for his frustration in life. Also, unlike in Detroit Metal City, the death metal aspect in Aggretsuko isn't used as a source of conflict. And despite it being described as a secret, the main character isn't very concerned with keeping it a secret, and she never faces any consequences for being found out. She doesn't even struggle with or address her seemingly bipolar transformation from cute and innocent to ugly and angry. Now, I wouldn't mind the lack of conflict in this aspect if it weren't for the show's insistence that this activity is somehow important for her, despite it not affecting the plot or the characters at all. There's no substance or value to the musical aspect of the show, and it could be cut out altogether. It would not only save runtime, but would also get rid of the terrible excuse for death metal it tries to pull off. Aggretsuko's attempt at parodying death metal is especially sad when you compare it with Detroit Metal City's parody of death metal, which was trying to be bad but ended up being entertaining anyway. Aggretsuko just uses the genre of death metal to make lots of noise and have its main character scream the lyrics that are so obvious on the nose about her angst that it puts Five Finger Death Punch to shame. The lyrics are once again filled with ha-ha, relatable phrases that have no deeper meaning within or outside of the show. This is again different from Detroit Metal City, which uses the death metal's lyrics as a parody of death metal and the entire metal scene as a whole, and isn't supposed to be some sort of ha-ha, can't you relate to this? She's screaming about her frustrations of work, isn't this so relatable? The lyrics in Detroit Metal City are meant to be a commentary on the death metal world, as well as serve as a subtle form of catharsis for the character. The show doesn't have to explicitly tell you that he uses this music for catharsis. It's something that you generally understand. In Aggretsuko, it treats you like a moron and just straight up tells you by giving the main character lyrics to sing which are directly about her life. I could also go into how the show has no understanding of what death metal is, because the songs in the show sounds like what my grandma would play if I asked her to play death metal based on her limited understanding of the genre. However, I want to stay on track here, so I won't go into that. The secondary characters in Aggretsuko also feel weak because they rely on the same shallow relatability factor. Never had a boss that treats you like shit, a friend who pretends to be an Instagram model and a kiss ass, or a coworker who acts like a carefree retard and loves gossip? Well then, fuck you. You don't get to enjoy the show because we don't know how to write characters. All we can do is write situations and stereotypes that will make you go, wow, that's so me! The crutch of relatability also makes the show painfully unfunny. In Detroit Metal City, the humor comes from the over-the-top ways in which people from the death metal world act, and in the juxtaposition to the main character's normal life, which leads both to conflict and makes way for dramatic build-up that can lead into a joke. Aggretsuko, on the other hand, again relies on relatability for its humor. There's no conflict or tension to set up a joke, at least not in the first episode that I watched, and especially not if you find yourself totally disconnected from the situation on screen. There's no irony or attempted absurdity. The show just expects you to laugh because, oh, that happened to me once too. The comparison to a Facebook meme couldn't be any better than in the comedic aspect of this show. When it comes down to it, LOL XD relatable is really all there is to this show. If what I've described here didn't make you think, wow, I relate to this very specific situation, then this show will not be funny, interesting, or engaging in any way to you. It will be an annoying waste of time at best. If that kind of a show sounds like garbage to you, it's because it is. Don't be misled by the marketing and by the rabid fans like I was, and just stay the hell away. I'm Randall the Vandal. Thanks for watching.